Hello everybody, it's your ghoul, Pony, and today we're going to be discussing Monster High New Scaremester issue number 1. If you've known me for the past couple of months, you'll know that I've been very impatiently waiting for it. I finally got my claws on a copy, and I can't wait to discuss it with you all. As always, this video will contain spoilers. If you haven't read the comic yet and don't want to be spoiled, feel free to come back later. The digital copy of this issue may be available from your local library via Hoopla, and you can always try to find it in a local comic shop or various other online retailers. So, let's get into it. The first thing that I feel like we should establish about this comic is that it is connected to the recent Monster High novel, Once Bitten, Twice Dead. That book acts as a prequel to this series. I have also had some people ask me if they need to read the previous Free Comic Book Day and Pride issues before this one. In my opinion, no. I do recommend reading them for further context, but I think that you'll understand the series fine if you start here. The Pride issue doesn't establish anything plot-related unless you count Claudine and Torlai's relationship, and while the Free Comic Book Day issue will give you a few more background details, I have a feeling they'll be re-established later. Before I get into all the delightful details, I'll give you all a quick synopsis of the plot. The book opens with some mysterious hooded figures confronting Bloodgood and proposing something to her. She is clearly irritated about their request and refuses, prompting the figures to reveal that they know where the currently missing Hezekiah is, and that they will reunite him with her if she does as they say. She is distraught, but again, refuses, and the figures attack and seemingly kidnap her. Later, during the school day, Frankie is trying to cheer up Claudine. The werewolf is upset due to her ex-schoolfriend, Torlai, having not responded to her since the night they broke up, as well as her parents seemingly getting a divorce. She also reveals that she and Cleo are not on speaking terms at the moment. The ghouls head to class, where Draculaura is summoned as head of the school board to give an announcement. She states that the school board has voted to uphold the Monster Clause, a set of rules that essentially boil down to humans and monsters being forbidden from interacting. Immediately after, the intercoms crackle as a note is found on Bloodgood's office announcing that she has left indefinitely to clear her head after a terrible Scaremester. In her absence, the school board has appointed Professor Stein as headmaster. Frankie is happy that her dad will be getting out more, although it leads to some teasing from reality. The werecat and her sister are now in league with Cleo, who's feuding with Claudine. Frankie then sees a bulletin board announcing fear-leading tryouts, and decides that this will be the perfect way to get the ghouls back together. So, I was so incredibly happy to see Michael Bloodgood being featured so prominently and in the first page of the first issue too. I've known about some of this since the previews released, but I am still so in shock that my faves are being not only acknowledged, but genuinely given spotlight. It makes me so incredibly happy, and I cannot wait to see what happens with them in the upcoming issues. In regards to Hezekiah being missing, it seems that the events of his diary, with him being found after a century, have happened, and that he's now just missing again? If this was just a result of bad luck or carelessness on his part, I would totally be calling BS. However, I think that him being sabotaged makes much more sense. Hex is a public figure, the subject of books and documentaries. It makes sense that his return would be news, and given his intellect, I can see why whoever this group is would want him on their side. Between that and them targeting Dr. Stein, it makes me wonder if their grand scheme may have something to do with the nature of Simulacrum. It also wouldn't surprise me if he was at least partially targeted due to being half human and half monster, given how the group seems to feel about them interacting. Additionally, I wanted to say that I was so glad to see how Bloodgood was handled in this issue too. I feel like a lot of times people don't really understand her character, but as of now, the author, Jackie I, seems to really get it. The decision she makes in the beginning of the issue is the correct writing choice for her. Bloodgood cares about her school so deeply, and it would be absolute hell, as is shown in the illustrations. But this is the choice she'd make. I also feel like it's the choice Hezekiah would have wanted her to make. He was part of the school's founding, after all, and his daughter goes there. Not to mention that I'm pretty sure what they were asking of her was to implement these rules. Rules that essentially condemn Hex's very existence. It's as she herself says, she could never betray Monster High. Also, though, can we please look at her, like, oh my gosh, the way she's about to cry and holds the picture to her heart. The first panel of them is even more emotional with the added context, too. While I had originally assumed that this must have happened in 1911 prior to his initial disappearance, having this be after he returns and before he goes missing again makes Nora's expressions and his "I'll be back before you know it" hit different. I'm sorry, guys, they live in my head rent-free, and I will not shut up about it. Okay, getting into stuff other than Blood Hex, I know that the main thing about this comic that people have seen is that Torlai and Claudine break up. Yes, this is true, but honestly, I really think they're gonna get back together. Part of me wonders if Torlai is missing too, and that's the real reason she hasn't responded to Claudine, and why Meality and Persephone are fanging out with Cleo. Speaking of people going missing, it's not actually stated, but I feel like that's probably where Mrs. Stein is too. She's not mentioned at all throughout the comics so far, but given how people are going missing left and right, it wouldn't be a surprise. That would also explain why Mr. Stein has been so much of a loner. We get to see this photo of him, Hex, and Nora, which, A, is just very sweet. Getting to see Hex be happy and interact with people after his return is so special to me. But B, really does make me think of how much Mr. Stein is going through. He has potentially lost his wife, but even if not, he's now lost 2 of his friends, is being blackmailed, and has now had the huge responsibility of being headmaster in Nora's absence thrust upon him. I feel like the reason he was appointed headmaster is because the villains already have him under their thumb, as per the Free Comic Book Day issue. I really do not trust the school board. Overall, I have really enjoyed this comic. For the most part, any of the little issues I had with it are really just issues that I had with Once Bitten, Twice Dead that carried over due to them being in the same timeline. For example, Laguna is one of the first people to say that she thinks the normie rules are a good idea, which feels very strange to me considering that in things like Ghoul's Rule, Laguna has always been one of the level-headed ones. But this isn't something that originated with the comic. This is a result of Once Bitten, Twice Dead's writing of Laguna. And the same thing goes for the insistence that monsters are a secret, despite this not lining up with the fact that there's various pieces of Monster High media featuring humans where they clearly know about monsters. I don't really hold these things against the comic because they didn't choose them, and I kind of feel like by the end of the series they'll have kind of fixed them in a way. There is a note in the editor's letter specifically mentioning that they know that a lot of us have questions and that things will be answered in due time, which feels like a call out to me specifically, but that's a joke. I also wanted to mention a couple of details that I really liked about the comic. Things that aren't really plot relevant, but make me happy. The first one is this little image of Heath and Abby's initials being carved into this corkboard at the school, as well as Abby waking Heath up when he falls asleep in class. I love them. There's also these little locker cameos from Rebecca, Venus, Hoodooed, and Jennifer. I really like that even though Cleo is fanging out with Meality and Persephone, she still calls them out when she deems that they crossed a line with Frankie. It's nice to see she still cares about her ghouls, despite the fallout. There's this one panel here that feels like a direct reference to that one Draculaura panel from I Only Have Eye for You that everyone and their mom uses their profile picture. And these last two are so tiny, but I think show such great attention to detail. All of the main ghouls have the same nail polish colors as their original box art. And they are using the correct fonts for each character's handwriting. Like, literally, even Bloodgood's is correct, despite her not having a diary to reference, and the letter most likely being forged. And that's most of what I have to say about it. I'm dying to get my claws on the next issue, and I can't wait to see this mystery unfold. I really need to see how Rebecca is doing, considering the circumstances. And I'm curious what will happen with Abby, too, considering that she lives with Bloodgood during the school year. I feel like she'd probably be one of the first monsters to realize something was wrong. I also would love to know what's going on with Claudine's family, especially Claude, and I'm curious if Cleo's mother will be mentioned at all, considering that by all means she should be back now. I want to see how Mr. Stein deals with his new position as headmaster too. Also, one of the other things I wanted to note is that they are accepting fan mail for the comic. There is an email address that you can email with your cosplays, your fan art, your fan letters, all of that. So if you have been keeping up with the comics and you're interested in potentially being featured in one of the next issues, absolutely submit your stuff. I have already submitted mine. And what about you all? Have you read the comics? And if so, what are your thoughts on them? Feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm hoping to continue covering them as they release and getting to talk about all the updates with you. As always, I hope that you're having a freaky fabulous day, and I will see you next time.